Castro. No. What you know about rolling down in the deep when your brain goes numb?
Alright, welcome to PBE Rewind, your one-stop shop, all things PBE. Let's jump right into our top news story of the week. We have a huge trade that just went down. The Sarasota Supernova relief pitcher J.A. Jabs was just recently traded to the New York Voyagers. Jabs was traded to New York for relief pitcher Michael Jordan, a season 16 relief pitcher, and also a season 26 fourth-round pick. The trade comes as a slight surprise towards the end of the season, as Jazz was signed to Sarasota to go on his farewell tour and to bring some leadership to a young Sarasota squad. Jabs on the year has pitched in 44 games as a 3-1 record with 2 saves and a 4.25 ERA in 59 innings. Jordan, on the other hand, has 37 games pitched with a 3-1 record and a 3.70 ERA in 56 innings pitched. We recently caught up with J.A. Jabs to ask him about the recent trade, and he had this to say. Jabs has had a good career, but one thing that's been missing from his borderline Hall of Fame resume is a World Series ring. I'm a firm believer that any team who makes it to the playoffs in the first place has a shot to win the World Series. Detroit can beat Death Valley in a 5 or 7 game series when you're talking about a small sample size. From the middle of the last season up until about partway through last Thursday's sim, I believed in my heart that the Sarasota Supernova could get to the playoffs. Some people may call the first half a surprise or a fluke, but I don't think that's the case, and I even put Sarasota in the playoffs in my preseason predictions for TPE. On Thursday, our slide hit troubled territory, and by the end of Saturday's sim, the Supernova had won 1 game in an entire month and lost 11 in a row. There were now 2 teams ahead of us in the wildcard race instead of a 0-1 game as it was previously. The path to the playoffs looked much less likely, and it was unclear how much longer the skid was going to continue. I asked for a trade for one last shot at a championship ring, and so Sarasota could at least get a little bit of value for 1 week of my player's services when he was facing retirement. Jordan could be a low TPE reinforcement for their season 24 bullpen, and you never know what a draft pick is going to turn into, even a 4th rounder. It was tough to leave, and I'm sure some of my former teammates are disappointed, but I think in the end, this is a net positive for all involved. As for why New York, I wanted to end my career in some place with friends and a culture I truly enjoyed. I appreciate the people in Sarasota, and I also appreciate the people in New York, and I had a lot of fun with the Voyagers back in season 19. GM Babs and I have been talking about a reunion for months now, but the stars have never aligned. They were more firmly rooted in the playoff picture and were the only team besides Sarasota I would want to finish my career with. If I was going to leave Sarasota, it was not going to be for a team like Death Valley or New Orleans or San Antonio. No offense to those squads. And not saying they would even want me in the first place. With my next player, I'm taking a slight step back from PBE. I'll still nearly be a max earner and around the site all the time, but things like championships and overreaching narratives of the player are less important to me. There's just something about J.A. Jabs where I wanted him to take the last shot at glory. I am continually indebted to the Sarasota leadership for making that happen. Shout out to Red Arrow, GM of Sarasota, for getting that statement from Jabs. As a teammate of Jabs, I wish him all the luck in the world. Hope he is able to achieve his goal of winning a championship in his last season, and he has much luck in his next character. And let's move right into standings moving into week 4 here. As in the Eastern Division, we have the New Orleans Rougarous at 57-28 at the top of the leaderboard, with the Cancun Toros 47-33, 7.5 games back. The New York Voyagers moved into 3rd place with a 44-39 record, with Outer Banks at 38-46 and the Sarasota Supernova falling hard to 33-43, 18.5 games of first. The Providence Crabs at 33-48, and the Indianapolis Apex at the end with 33-50. In the Western Division, the San Antonio Sloths have maintained their dominance of the division with a 61-20 record atop the division. Death Valley Scorpions aren't too far behind at 58-24 and 3.5 games back. The Boise Raptors are 42-38, and the Nashville Stars are really close behind them at 43-39, both 18.5 games of first. The Vancouver Vandals are 33-48, and the Troy Demons at 29-54, with the Kashima Foxes at the end at 18-61. Well, as the season falls into the last quarter, we have to take a quick look at the wild card race and the playoff picture. With New Orleans and San Antonio atop the divisions and in a relatively firm grasp, Let's take a look at the wild card. Death Valley Scorpions at 58-24 have a solid spot in the wild card race, and Cancun Toros are right behind them, 47-33, and the New York Voyagers have moved into a wild card berth along with the Boise Raptors. The Nashville Stars are right in there as well, tied with Raptors, and behind them we have the Outer Banks Aviators 6 games back and the Sarasota Supernova 6 games back. Well, so far there's been a lot of storylines this season, especially in that Eastern Division, as we've had some pretty close races, and it's going to continue into the wild card race with a few teams still in this thing. This is going to be an exciting week 4 as we move into getting closer to the playoff picture, and we'll see what kind of ending these storylines have. Now it's time we move into our minor league rewind with Sam. Sam, what do you got for me this week?
The minor league PBE playoffs are fast approaching, and the standings are incredibly close. Well, most of them, at least. Today's minor league recap is going to go over the playoff race and how close it is in each division. Let's start off with the Western. Well, the Western Division is pretty interesting. Sitting atop of the totem pole is the San Bernardino 66ers, who are having one of, if not the best season in MiLPBE history. As of February 8th, they sit at 60-12 with a 33-7 record at home. Players like Randy Myth, Jackie Daytona, Brent Tonathan, Rem Beverwinkle, Chloe McCarthy, Danny Sullivan, and Bill the Hill are dominating the minor leagues. San Bernardino leads in all but 2 of the PBE team batting stats. They are second in strikeouts and third in walks. Other than that, the 66ers batters sit at the top. And while the 66ers pitching staff doesn't lead in as much categories, they still lead in a few, namely ERA, bullpen ERA, and runs allowed. There's really no question here. The 66ers are by far the best team in the league and the favorites to win it all. But the division after the 66ers is pretty close. The Dillos, Hepcats, and Wheelers sit at 38, 37, and 35 wins respectively. It really is anybody's game for the wildcard spot, and the Dillos are the favorites for it. They sit half a game ahead of the second wildcard spot, and they're coming off of a poor stretch of games, as they were 3-7 out of their last 10. The Dillos have had an up and down season, finishing with a 7-10 record in both June and July, and a 10-7 record in May. The Dillos no doubt have a good chance of getting that first wildcard spot, but they really have to pull out some tough series to keep the lead, as they end their regular season against the 66ers. Can they pull through? Next up is the Kansas City Hepcats. The Hepcats sit at 37 wins, and the fact that they are even contending for a playoff spot right about now seems insane. At the end of June, they had a dismal 11-29 record, which many saw as the final nail in the coffin for their season. But despite a bad record, the Hepcats rebounded in July and August, going 11-6 and 12-5 respectively. Now with the help of second-year stars such as Wee Dem Boys and Miles Ahead, and star rookies Kiwi Mace and Tommy Caruso, the Hepcats have a serious chance of making the playoffs. But they have a tough series against the 66ers next. Can the Hepcats defy the odds and pull out a playoff berth? Finally, sitting at last in the division, but not by much, are the Anchorage Wheelers. The Wheelers are led by second-year standout Wander Franco, who has a .364 average this year. The Wheelers, much like the Dillos, have had a season made up of peaks and valleys. After an 11-6 May, the team finished June and July with losing records before finishing 9-8 in August, and they sit at 2-5 this month. While the Wheelers aren't in the best spot at the moment, the sim is a fickle mistress, and Lady Luck might just shine upon them in clutch time. Will the Wheelers trek their way into the playoffs this week? Now, let's move on to the Eastern Division, which is much closer than the West. The Dynamos currently lead, but not by much. They're just 4 games ahead of second place, which belongs to the Kingpins as of now. The Dynamos boast a strong rookie core of Ruth Heater Ginsburg and Michael Knight Ryder, along with guys like Giannis Kraustis and Dustin Parmley. They have a great core and are no doubt a strong team, but the team cannot take their first place lead for granted. They're going to have to fight for a playoff spot just like the rest of the division. Now let's head north of Dallas to the great state of Illinois, where we'll look at the Chicago Kingpins. The Kingpins are 38-43, half a game back from the Dillos. They're led by the likes of Chris Jacob, Big Chungus, Leo Robert, and Tony Gunk. Much like the rest of the league, the Kingpins have had a very up and down year, ending 2 months with a winning record, 2 with a losing record, and 1 with an even record. As of now, they sit at 3-4 in September and are facing off against the Dynamos in their next series. Will the Kingpins be able to reclaim their throne come playoff time? That is, if they even make it? Sitting at 1.5 games back from the wildcard spot is the Kingston Mounties. They are captained by Tex Walker, Peter Dawson Jr., and Jack Rollo, and have a solid rookie cast of Anita Fardinghouse, Maddie DeFerrari, and Warren Peace. While the Mounties do have a stacked roster, their record has been all over the place. They have had pretty much the exact same story as the Kingpins. 2 winning months, 2 losing months, 1 even months, but they are down 2-4 in September. The Mounties are most certainly still in it, but they have an uphill battle against them. Finally, we go to State College, Pennsylvania, where we will look at the Swifties. The Swifties have a pretty decent group of players this year, with the likes of Sumi 2, Nico Baldelli, Jody Quinn, Ernie Harwell, and BJ Fox being very notable and productive members of the team. But the Swifties haven't had the best year. In fact, they haven't even finished a month with a winning record. Their best record in a month was 8-8. But despite all this, the Swifties are still in the playoff race, sitting at 36 wins. No doubt a weird year for the Swifties, but they can definitely make it into the playoffs with a lot of hard work and dedication. It'll be interesting to see how this final MiLPBE regular season week plays out. Until then, I'm Sam for the PBE Rewind, and I'll see you all around.
Absolutely great stuff. As we get closer to the end of the minor league season, that playoff picture is also going to be an exciting storyline to keep following moving forward. And back with us this week, we have a favorite segment that is returning. We have our good old friend Cowboy with another segment of Cowboy's Callbacks. Take it away, Cowboy.
Howdy y'all, it's Cowboy back again for another episode. I decided this episode I'm going to take it easy. We're going to have a little conversation. I'm going to show y'all that I know a few things about this here baseball thing, this here PBE, like this winning thing. I don't just talk a game. Just because I'm a big 6'4", unstoppable monster doesn't mean that I don't know a few things. So we here at Apex, we've kind of figured something out that I don't think other teams have thought of. I don't know how. We're like 23 seasons in, and it took a rookie coming in here figuring out the winning strategy. If you do this, you just cannot lose. Look, all you have to do is have your entire team be max earners. That's all you gotta do. Get the maximum amount of TPE, and you win ball games. And that's what we're going to do. I don't know if other teams have the work ethic to put that in, that whole 20 minutes. But if you don't, that is just pathetic. I know Kashima doesn't, but of these other teams, if y'all follow what I just said, we can have a competitive league. If not, Apex is going to run this into the ground. We will be too dominant. Everyone will get bored of it. So, heed my warning. Heed it. Cowboy out.
Fantastic stuff, as always, Cowboy. Thanks again. Hopefully, we'll get another segment coming for you shortly. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of PBE. Right before week 4, today is Tuesday. We're actually getting this one in before this ends, which is fantastic. Join us next week as we kind of take a look at the playoff picture, as we'll have a solid idea what to expect, and we'll break that down. Thanks again. This has been Ioe Torrent and Sam and Cowboy
What you
with
know
PBE
about
Rewind.
rolling
Have a good day.
down in the deep when your brain goes numb? You can call that mental freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. Ay, what you know